Happy Friday, monsters! Thanks so much for joining us for today's podcast episode. You should know that our weekly episodes double as weekly gatherings for our very own true crime cult.
That's right, we started a cult. But not to worry, you've landed in the cult with all the baby goats and none of the brainwashing.
If you're just finding us now, allow us to introduce ourselves. I'm Angelina, and today I'm hanging out with my sinister sister, Aurora. How was your week?
Good so far. Spring is arriving in Budapest. I'm feeling very excited to wear just jackets outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've already been playing with some jackets. I have so many jackets that are all for the time of year that lasts 2 weeks. So
yes, me too.
All of my cool jackets have just a small window.
Right? I always love a good jean jacket but you really can never wear them.
No. One time per year.
Yeah, right. I will wear it one day tomorrow and then never again. Goodbye, jean jacket.
But there should be a closet we should share out. This could be a business opportunity. The 1 day a year jacket shared by 300 people.
That's true because depending on where you live, that day is a different day of the year. Is it
even within the same country,
jacket weather in
across
Montreal?
Canada?
Right.
Today, I'm not sure. Yeah, yesterday it was, and then in the evening it was definitely not. It was trying to wear the same jacket all day was not functional. It dropped 15 degrees over the course of the afternoon. So yeah.
Well, that sounds very cold.
Yeah, but we're getting through it. It's almost over. I'm still feeling positive. It's sunny. It's good.
That's right. We'll take it. Well, just because you tune into our show week after week, we like to think of you as honorary monsters. But if you want to be a bona fide card-carrying member, you can secure your spot in the MMN commune on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/murdernews, where you can choose your tier of support. To show how much we appreciate your signing up, we'll give you an official title like Grandmaster of Goats, and we'll send you a bit of murder merch so you can proudly display you're a monster, and we'll even name one of our adorable baby goats after you.
Not to mention, you will get exclusive access to our regular patron-only content. We have a special video episode coming up at the end of this month, all about the 16th century boss babe that launched an enterprise providing covert poison to women who wanted to dispense of their husbands.
Ooh, I can't wait. I vaguely know about this story, and I've always wanted to do a deeper dive. Awesome.
Very cool. I'm excited to dig into.
Original MLM.
Yes. We also take requests. So if there are any stories or subjects from the realm of true crime and spooky happenings that you would like to see us cover, just send us a DM on Patreon or email us at murdernews@gmail.com.
Now, before we dig into today's episode, let's take a look at some of the true crime stories that have been making headlines this week.
There has been an update to the case of Adnan Syed, which you might remember from the podcast Serial. Syed was convicted of the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hae Min Lee, back in 1999, though he has always maintained his innocence. After years of filing motions to appeal his conviction, Syed's legal team finally gained some traction last week as Judge Melissa Finn ruled that evidence which had not been previously tested should be sent to a California crime lab within 15 days. Evidence being tested includes clothing, shoes, and additional articles. Test results will be sent to both the defense and the prosecution, as well as the FBI's DNA databases.
Exciting. 12 years after the death of former NBA player Lorenzen Wright shocked fans and the pro basketball community, his murderer was finally convicted on Monday. Last seen visiting his ex-wife and children in their home near Memphis, Tennessee on July 18, 2010, Wright is believed to have been killed the following day. His body was discovered in a wooded area in southeast Memphis 9 days later, riddled with bullets. The case went cold for 7 years. In 2019, Lorenzen's ex-wife, Shara Wright, took a plea deal and was sentenced to 30 years for facilitation to commit first-degree murder. This week, Tennessee man Billy Ray Turner was sentenced to life in prison for murder. Prosecutors say Shara Wright masterminded a plan to murder her ex-husband and recruited Turner, a landscaper she knew from church, to help. Cher's cousin was also enlisted to help with the murder, but that man is already serving time in another case and has received immunity in this one. Wright's mother, Deborah Marion, says that Turner's conviction has brought the family some much-needed closure.
We'll be right back after a quick commercial break from one of our favorite Darkcast podcasts.
Hi there, nerdlings. I'm Ash.
And I'm Nat. We're the host of Crime Time Nerds, a podcast that focuses on lesser-known investigations, unsolved cases, serial killers, and small-town crimes. Join us as we pick up our flashlights and begin our search for answers as we venture down those dark, true crime paths together.
Join us every Sunday as we explore the nature of these often heinous and heartbreaking cases. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can visit our website at crimetimenerds.com or follow our social media platforms. Don't forget to trust your gut, and we hope you join us each and every week.
And we're back. Now, before we get into our story, we just want to say that while our tone is light in the intro, we do take the topics we're discussing very seriously. We are best buds, and we love chatting together every week and turning it into a podcast. We want to share that passion with you and to create a vibe where all of you feel like our best buds too. We joke about us friends forming a cult or commune, but that's not to diminish the severity of actual cult activity, which we do occasionally talk about in our weekly stories. We feel it's important to open up and talk about even the darkest aspects of humanity and the downright scary things that come up in the news. But we want to make it clear that our intention is never to sensationalize, and we always try to deliver these stories with respect to all parties involved or affected by the crimes we discuss.
We always post our sources in the episode description, so you can do some digging on your own if a story we present piques your interest. But you should know that if you ever feel we get it wrong, either in our tone or in the details of the case, we want to hear about it. We are more than happy to make a correction or give an update on a case we've discussed in previous episodes. So feel free to reach out to us at murdermurdernews@gmail.com.
Marianne Cotton was born Marianne Robson in Durham County, England in 1832.
Execution. So if any of those are particularly sensitive subjects for you, you may want to skip this one and listen to one of our other episodes instead.
Marianne Cotton was born Marianne Robson in Durham County, England in 1832. The exact date of her birth can't be confirmed. Historian Ian Smythe Herdman, who dedicated his career and 30 years of his life to researching the case of Marianne Cotton, says she was born on the third week of October. Many publications, recordings, and even Wikipedia have listed her birth on October 31st, Halloween, which never falls on the third week of October. This is one small detail among many that have been twisted and retold in the name of a sensational story. The idea of a witchy black widow born on Halloween is very compelling, and we can see why many latch on to that erroneous detail. We can also see how it stacked the deck against Marianne and created so much room for injustice. By the time her case went to trial, Marianne Cotton's reputation was sealed. There was even a nursery rhyme about her, which was sung by onlookers after her hanging. It went like this. Marianne Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten, lying in bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, oh what can I sing? Marianne Cotton, she's tied up with string. Where, up in the air, selling black puddings, a penny a pair. Marianne Cotton, she's dead and forgotten, lying in bed with her bones all rotten. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Marianne Cotton, tied up with string.
Wow, that's very dark for a nursery rhyme.
Morbid. Yeah.
Mary Ann's physical description has morphed over time, particularly as there is only one photo of her that exists today. Folks like to think of her as a scary old lady, ugly and angry looking. One podcast used in research for today's episode even referred to her as looking like a, quote, bog troll, and the host wondered how she managed to snag so many husbands. Ian Smythe Herdman says that she was a beautiful young woman in her day, but points out that her beauty did little to sway her bad reputation. Instead of a scary old witch, some looked at Mary Ann as a dangerous beauty. During her trial, the Northern Echo published an article with a description provided by Mary Ann's former Sunday school teacher of what she was like as a child. Allegedly, she was a decent student with an innocent disposition and a clean and tidy appearance.
Even as a young girl, she knew hardship. When she was 8, Mary Ann's father died after falling into a 150-foot mine shaft. Wikipedia says his body was delivered to the family in a sack bearing the stamp, "Property of the South Hetton Coal Company." Following his death, his widow and children were evicted from their home, which had been provided by his employer. Mary Ann's mother remarried another miner, and the children were sent to boarding school. Mary Ann was trained as a dressmaker and also worked as a nurse. A damn good nurse as far as Ian Smythe Herdman is concerned. He has pointed out that she likely saved countless lives, though her career is another detail that is often overlooked. In 1852, when she was 20 years old, Mary Ann married a colliery laborer named William Mowbray, and the couple moved to southwest England. The pair allegedly had 4 or 5 children, though the only birth actually recorded was that of their daughter, Margaret Jane, born in 1856. We're not sure about birth records, but it was compulsory to register any deaths that occurred, though Wikipedia states that that law was not enforced until 1874. Those 4 or 5 children are said to have died young, but none of those deaths were ever registered. Their deaths appeared to have been caused by typhoid fever, which was pretty common. There were a lot of sickly people at this point in time, as poverty led to families living in squalor and often unsanitary conditions, from which typhoid fever was often born. In addition, at this point in history, the world had just seen 4 major influenza epidemics, with a global pandemic just a few short decades away. Many families lost small children, so the deaths in the Mowbray family didn't arouse any suspicion at the time.
There's a TV miniseries that was broadcast in 2016 about Mary Ann Cotton, inspired by a book, Mary Ann Cotton, Britain's First Female Serial Killer, by David Wilson, a criminologist. Ian Smythe Herdman is not a fan. He debunks a number of misinformed or sensationalized scenes from the film on his website, maryanncotton.co.uk. In the first part of the miniseries, which touches on Mary Ann's early adult life, she was portrayed as being devastated by the loss of her children, which brought her back to her hometown and the support of her family. She'd been eager to have a family and was ready to make more babies as fast as she could to make up for the loss she had experienced. Though the miniseries certainly vilified Mary Ann, some of the earlier scenes were more humanizing. And rather than paint her as callous and unfeeling, at times she came across as sensitive and almost compassionate. Back home in northeast England, Mary Ann would stay home with the children as William worked as a fireman aboard a steam vessel. Margaret Jane was a toddler, and her little sister Isabella was born in 1858. Margaret Jane died in 1860, just 4 years old, and we're not sure about her cause of death. Another Margaret Jane was born in 1861. Mary Ann had loved the name so much she reused it. The couple welcomed a son, John Robert William, in 1863.
William Mowbray, a little freaked out by all of the illness and death that seemed to surround them, took out life insurance policies on himself and the surviving children, with Mary Ann as the beneficiary. In the miniseries, it was very much William's idea. He did it behind Mary Ann's back and surprised her. We obviously can't verify whose idea it was to start taking out life insurance policies, and we can't say whether there was any ill will or dark motivations behind it. John Robert William died in 1864 of gastric fever, which seems to be just another name for typhoid fever. William Mowbray died of an intestinal disorder in 1865. Mary Ann collected an insurance payout of £35 for her husband, which would be over £3,000 today. Wikipedia notes that this was about half a year's salary for a manual laborer at the time. She collected a payout of £25 for John William Robert. Mary Ann, William, and the kids were quite poor, lived in some pretty rough accommodations, and battled bedbugs. As we mentioned, typhoid fever is typically brought on or intensified by living in unsanitary conditions. So it's possible that the family's poverty contributed to the demise of so many of their children. I should also note that the treatment for bedbugs at the time was arsenic, which is very poisonous.
Oof.
Arsenic residue on the beds they slept in could have resulted in accidental poisoning. During her trial, prosecutors speculated that Marianne had kept a stash of arsenic after her first bedbug infestation and used it to deliberately poison several members of her family. There is no record of Marianne Cotton purchasing arsenic whatsoever. The miniseries and historian Ian Smythe Herdman have two completely different explanations for this. The miniseries shows the shopkeeper dispensing arsenic to Marianne and telling her to write her info in the book by the cash, which she didn't bother to do. Herdman's research says that Marianne sent her child to purchase the poison. The shopkeeper was so busy that he tasked his son with dispensing the arsenic, and neither boy knew to make a record of the sale.
Marianne moved to Seaham Harbor to try to start anew. She met Joseph Natras, with whom she had a bit of a fling. During this fling, little Margaret Jane, who was 3.5 years old at the time, died of typhus fever. This makes for at least 8 children who have died under Marianne's care. Marianne moved back to Northeast England, and she sent her surviving daughter Isabella to live with her grandmother, Marianne's mother. Marianne took a job at the Sunderland Infirmary, House of Recovery for the Cure of Contagious Fever, Dispensary, and Human Society. To those of you on Team Scary Marianne, this move might seem menacing. Working in the medical field, she would have access to a number of drugs and gain an extensive knowledge of how to administer drugs, which drugs can be detected in tests, etc. Or if you believe that Marianne had lost 8 children and a husband to typhoid fever, it also makes sense that she would find a passion for healthcare and in particular, working to cure contagious fever. Marianne became romantically involved with a patient of hers at the infirmary named George Ward. They married in 1865, but George never really got any better for whatever illness he had been suffering. When we get into cases that are this old, not only are the details difficult to confirm, when illness and death are involved, they probably never knew what they were dealing with in the first place. George had been suffering from paralysis and intestinal problems, and when he died in October of 1866, English, cholera, and typhoid were recorded as the cause of death on his death certificate. Marianne again received an insurance payout after her husband's death. I suppose the insurance money was not enough to live off of, so in November of 1866, Mary Ann took a job as a live-in housekeeper for a young widower named James Robinson and his young children. In December of 1866, John, the baby, died of gastric fever. James and Mary Ann fell in love, naturally, and Mary Ann quickly became pregnant. One of the reasons why I've always been attracted to true crime is that I spend a lot of time processing the worst thing that can happen and kind of planning my escape route if I were to be abducted or find myself on a scary Tinder date. But sometimes I get true crime overload, which leads me to setting up booby traps around my apartment like I'm Kevin McAllister, self-medicating with wine, and struggling with falling asleep.
I'm so glad that we talk about therapy so much in this community, and I've learned so much about cognitive behavior therapy from the work I've done and how I can use those tools to calm down when my mind is racing or imagining there could be a serial killer hiding in my closet. We've been using this great app, Nuna, that uses CBT methods in this cool chat function, which helps me get a hold of my thoughts and feel like a friend is helping talk me back to a more reasonable state of mind.
You can try Nuna right now to help with your mental well-being and get 25% off when you use our link to sign up. Just go to landing.nuna.ai/MMN or just click on the link in our show notes for your 25% discount.
Let Nuna help convince you that the noise you heard outside your door is probably just your cat up to their usual hijinks. In the early spring of 1867, Marianne's mother got hepatitis and wasn't doing so well. So Marianne went to stay with her and basically be her nurse. Wikipedia notes that although at first she began to recover, her mother's health took a sudden downturn when she started complaining of stomach pains. She passed away just 9 days after Marianne's arrival. Marianne and William Mowbray's daughter, Isabella, who had been living with her grandmother, went back with her mother to live with the Robinsons after her death. There was still a life insurance policy on Isabella, who died suddenly after developing severe stomach pains. The exact same illness seemed to spread to her step-siblings, James's children, Elizabeth and James Jr. All three children were buried in the spring of 1867. Marianne collected on Isabella's insurance. That summer, Marianne and James married, and their baby was born that November. Margaret Isabella grew ill and died the following February. The couple had a second child, George, in 1869. If this is all starting to sound a little suspect at this point, I'm with you. Typhoid fever killed 10% of the people who had it, which is quite a lot, but it does seem unusual for all of the children in one family to die from it, especially on multiple occasions. And if you ask me, it's a bit suspect that Marianne never caught these illnesses whenever they were going around in her family. And if there were some accidental arsenic poisonings in the mix after bedbug infestations, Marianne would have been at risk as well. She was a nurse, but if her medical knowledge was any help to her in these situations, you would think she could have helped her children too.
While Marianne was allegedly badgering James to take out a life insurance policy, he grew a little suspicious of her too. According to Wikipedia, he discovered that Marianne was secretly sitting on a mountain of debt. To pay it off, Marianne had been stealing cash from her husband and getting the children to pawn valuables from their house and bring the money back to her. James kicked Marianne out, but retained sole custody of their child, George. On his website, Ian Smythe Herdman highlights the idea that Marianne sought out these life insurance policies to live, quote, the good life, as particularly off base. She seemed to be struggling financially throughout her entire life. She worked hard, but babies were expensive. So if you've been building this picture in your mind of a glamorous Black widow working her way up to living in a mansion, let me stop you right there. Marianne spent some time living on the streets until a friend, Margaret Cotton, set her up with her brother. Frederick Cotton was a widower, and half of his 4 children had also died. Margaret, the children's aunt, stepped in to help raise them, until she suddenly died from an unknown stomach ailment in 1870. Marianne also got pregnant in 1870, and she and Frederick Cotton wed, although Marianne did not reveal that she was actually already married to James Robinson. But this was a whole other town, Newcastle upon Tyne. And even when counties did keep records, they didn't necessarily share them with other counties. There wasn't a system in place to invalidate Marianne's claims that she was single.
The Cottons took out life insurance on Frederick and his sons. Marianne rekindled the fling with her former lover, Joseph Nattrass. He was living in West Auckland, about 30 miles away from the Cottons, and single. Frederick Cotton died of gastric fever just 3 months after their wedding. Marianne named their baby Frederick Jr., and not long after, she was pregnant again. Allegedly, she was hanging out with Nattrass and another guy who may or may not have been her employer when she became pregnant with her next child. The 2 babies were dead by the middle of 1872, and Nattrass was next. All from gastric fever, all with life insurance policies. Finally, it was just Marianne and her stepson, Charles Edward Cotton. She tried to get him committed to a workhouse, which was an establishment offering room and board in exchange for labor. She had to ask permission from Thomas Riley, who was a parish official and also the county coroner. Riley told her that she would have to accompany Charles if he went to the workhouse, and she mentioned the boy was ill and allegedly uttered, quote, "but I won't be troubled for long." 5 days later, she reported the boy's death and tried to collect insurance money, but was told she had to wait for a death certificate.
An inquest was held, but a jury found that Charles died of natural causes. Marianne claimed that Riley started making accusations against her after she refused his advances. So that would have been it, except that newspapers had already picked up the sensational story of Marianne Cotton. Journalists dug around and discovered all of Marianne's past children, husbands, and lovers who had died. Charles' former doctor, Dr. William Byers Kilburn, came forward claiming to have kept samples from the child, which tests showed contained arsenic. We want to point out that there was no test to detect arsenic until the Marsh test, which was first published in 1836 and was used in forensic toxicology from then until the 1970s. Prior to the Marsh test, deaths from arsenic were likely recorded as from cholera or typhoid fever, which produced similar symptoms. If Marianne had planned to deliberately poison her family, she may not have been aware that there was a test for arsenic or that she could be caught. Oddly, Dr. Kilburn used not the Marsh test, but the wrench test. Ian Smythe Herdman questions the accuracy of this test, says the evidence was flawed, and that in today's court, it would have been thrown out. We would also note that arsenic was used in everything from pigments in paint and wallpaper to certain medications, and accidental poisonings did occur from time to time. And then there's the defense allegation that the chemist accidentally mixed arsenic into Charles' medication in place of bismuth.
Side note, like if you look up bismuth, it's like an iridescent metal that has like, because when you take like Pepto-Bismol or whatever, it's pink. Yeah. And so I was like, I knew it was an element. I knew it was kind of a metal. And I was like, I wonder if it's pink like this naturally. Right. And I looked it up and it's this iridescent sort of glowy kind of interesting rock. And I'm like, that cures diarrhea. Okay.
That does not sound like something we should put in our bodies.
No, but it works so well. Yeah. Let's try this.
I guess.
The good old days.
Yeah, at least it works.
Yeah.
Today, the Beamish Museum has a teapot in their collection that reportedly belonged to Mary Ann. Rumours and television miniseries allege that Cotton committed serial poisonings with her prized teapot, passed on to her by her mother. This teapot has never been tested for arsenic, though experts agree that if this were the famed teapot, it would hold traces of arsenic even after washing.
Rumors and stories turned into accusations, and Mary Ann Cotton was arrested. Her trial was delayed because of her pregnancy, and Mary Ann gave birth to her 13th child in jail. Margaret Edith Quick Manning Cotton was born on January 10th, 1873, and on March 5th, 1873, the case went to trial. Mary Ann was convicted of murder, and her infant daughter was adopted by a couple that she knew who she trusted to raise her child as their own. Ian Smythe Herdman doesn't necessarily assert Mary Ann Cotton's innocence, but he seems unconvinced of her guilt in the writings on his website. Here's one example. Herdman asks, quote, "Is it conceivable that a woman can bear children, nourish children, feed and care for a husband, and then administer arsenic to such an extent as to cause an agonizing, slow, painful death? Surely in today's modern educated society, this thought would be unbelievable, a thought so barbaric, so inhumane that it beggars belief." Ultimately, that thought is not so unbelievable today. A number of mothers, from Andrea Yates to Diane Downs, have proven it's possible for a mother to cruelly kill her own children. But we can't disregard the fact that the justice system is not always kind to women, particularly during the 19th century.
Lucia Zedner writes in the abstract of her book, Women, Crime, and Custody in Victorian England, which you can find in the DOJ's virtual library, quote, "Notions of femininity and masculinity influenced the way in which crime was viewed. Consequently, criminality was perceived, judged, and explained in terms of the offender's sex." The digital panopticon clarifies, the 19th century female offender, often portrayed in the press as unfeminine, sexually promiscuous, calculating, and callous, was reviled by many contemporaries as the antithesis of all a virtuous and respectable woman should be. As soon as rumors started circulating and folks began to see Mary Ann Cotton as a wicked woman, she was doomed whether or not she was actually guilty. And while the details of her history might sound damning, there are positions to consider between Mary Ann being innocent or a twisted murderer. Epidemic after epidemic and the unfortunate side effects of poverty makes a high rate of childhood disease probable. It may be unlikely that gastric fever killed so many members of her family, but Mary Ann could have been more of an angel of death. With so many sick children to care for and so much suffering around her, she might have felt it was better to put them out of their misery. The digital panopticon mentioned, quote, "The ideal of the virtuous woman becomes a domestic trap. If she was in an abusive relationship, she needed more than one offense to obtain a divorce. And if her husband accused her of adultery, she could potentially lose her home and status as a wife. The thought of Marianne being trapped in unhappy marriage after unhappy marriage and seeing no way out is another possible explanation for the untimely deaths of her husbands.
Nonetheless, Marianne maintained her innocence and expected to be granted clemency. There were several petitions presented to the Home Secretary, none successful. Marianne Cotton was hanged on March 24th, 1873 by executioner William Calcraft. She did not die instantly of a broken neck, but instead she died of asphyxia. The rope was too long, the drop was too short, and Marianne was left writhing, stunned but very much alive. A crowd of onlookers watched her slow death as the rope gradually tightened, with her struggle eventually strangling her. I should note here that a lot of people believe that this was done on purpose because of just how hated Marianne was by all of these people, that the executioner thought he would torture her.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Even done correctly, hanging seems inhumane as executions go. Even if Marianne Cotton was guilty of murder, the evidence presented in the trial of her stepson's murder was flimsy at best. And there was no evidence of, nor was she ever charged with, any other crimes. The way this executioner and his crowd of onlookers acted, it was certain she was the worst serial killer in history. She may have been. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but there was no proof, nor even sufficient investigation to make a legal accusation. No matter which way you slice it, there was a miscarriage of justice. Marianne Cotton went down in history as England's first ever serial killer, predating Jack the Ripper. She is still regarded as one of the most prolific murderers in England's history.
Wow. I have definitely heard her name before, but I didn't know her entire story, I guess.
Yeah. All I can say is thank God for Ian Smythe Herdman dedicating his life to this. I mean, it seems like he was a little misguided. I don't know. He seems to believe maybe that she's completely innocent, which seems probably unlikely unless it really is that twisted how people.
Right.
Yeah. It seems likely that she's done something wrong here, but no one can say exactly how much. And without his looking into how illegitimate some of the evidence was, or how there was just no proof and no investigation and no charges for any of the other murders, everyone would have just believed the, I guess, most popular story, sort of echoed by the miniseries
the old
of
witch
her just
narrative.
being this, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows? But it's clear that, when we're looking that far back, we get a lot wrong.
Sure.
Even with someone dedicating their whole life to the story, it's still not totally sealed up. So very interesting. So what are you watching this week?
Well, I think we both watched Bad Vegan.
We did.
And
that was fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's for those of you who haven't watched it yet, it feels kind of like a combo of The Tinder Swindler meets The Puppet Master.
Yeah.
With some weird vegan stuff going on. I say that as a vegan.
Yeah. Well, the vegan thing is funny because I guess the only reason they mention that is because I guess they assume that a vegan is supposed to have higher moral standards or something like that, for one thing, and that her being bad as this vegan chef is also, a little contradictory, as well as the fact that when she was caught, she was ordering a pizza, which is not a healthy vegan food.
And just to clarify, she did not eat the pizza. It wasn't her. It was just used on the guy that was manipulating her credit card. And the police have clarified she did not touch the pizza. They don't believe she ate the pizza.
It's an important thing to know that she did not eat that pizza.
Well, 'cause I think people like to see vegans fail, admittedly. I'm sure people would love to watch me eat pizza.
And the funny thing is, how is that even a failure? If you've managed to be vegan for years of your life, you have avoided, all of this opportunity to eat animal products. And if you do slip up one time, that doesn't ruin the whole.
Yeah, I agree. You can still be vegan and like occasionally be like, oops, or you're traveling and things are hard, or you're sick,
still
or
trying
like
harder
things
than a lot of
happen.
people.
I agree. Like it's like every meat meal people skip is like a win for animals and stuff. So I also don't like it when people like take so much pressure on themselves and put it on others.
Like you have to be perfect or you can't even say anything about it. And that's like, that's ridiculous. But this woman, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to believe about her. You should all go watch the series and find out what you think. But like, it's really hard to tell even by the end whether she was just that manipulated as to carry out these crimes on behalf of someone else who's manipulating her, or whether she was sort of involved in it.
Right.
But
and it's interesting because like I had one of her cookbooks like years ago. I had like one of her like raw cookbooks, and I remember it being good. I'm not really like a raw food person. It upsets my stomach, honestly. But it's just not for me. I like soups, like warm foods.
I agree. I like cooked foods.
But like she's just lovely, and she's like very pretty, and like seems very pleasant. Like the movie mentions, like Alec Baldwin was in love with her, and like she was just this like this force. Like everybody wanted to go to this restaurant, not just to eat her amazing food, but to see her. Like she was just like a presence. And like I had tried to go to her restaurant in New York like years ago. And it was one of those things like you had to like know somebody or have a long-standing reservation. Like you couldn't just easily get in. Right. And so I'd never gone, and I had no idea any of this had happened. Like I was vaguely aware of who she was in the vegan community. And I did not know like that she was on the run or like any of this stuff. So it was pretty mind-blowing to watch for me. And the plot, for any of you who haven't watched it, is basically she's manipulated by this man. And like the short of it is, who convinced her like through like a series of like transferring money that she would be able to magically make her dog immortal. Like that she was in like some other plane of existence, and like this earth isn't real and whatever.
This guy was clearly very charismatic in a weird way.
The movie makes this really like funny point, and it's like saying in like her defense, they're like, well, like vegans are often like more interested in things like mysticism and crystals and whatever. And I hear this and I'm like, no, we're not. Shut up. And then like I look over at my like tarot cards with my crystals.
Your
and
crystals.
I'm like, well, I do sort of like these things. I can't argue with that. And I would definitely, like if somebody told me there was like a way to make, especially my pit bull that died a few years ago, immortal, like I would have done anything.
You'd be like, I have to try.
In the world, yes. Like I would have bankrupted myself. Like I would have done anything. So parts of it were relatable.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, master manipulators can really convince people of any sort of like seemingly illogical thing, you know? Like it's a slow process. It's not like they just walk up to you and go, hey, want to make your dog immortal? It's like they get to know you and then sort of weave this into conversation, and somehow based on all of your interactions, you come to believe it, right? So, but I don't know how much you can come to believe that, like how can you go on the run without knowing that you're on the run necessarily?
That was, I don't know. I would like to hear like more about what her state of mind is now. I don't know. I don't want to reveal too much about it. Y'all go watch it and let us know what you think. Like if you think that, like she really believed, like she really was brainwashed, or if you think she was somewhat kind of aware and didn't care, like we definitely want to hear
we'd love to chat with you about it in our Facebook
y'all
group.
think she is. And we have a TikTok up about it if you'd like to post there, or send us an email, or post in our Facebook group. But it's really interesting, and I honestly haven't talked to many people about it, and I have a lot of thoughts. So
let's
you have watched. Let's start a thread. Let's chat.
And what else have you been watching? Anything?
The only other thing I can think of that I watched. Oh, wait, I did watch two other things. I watched on Netflix Windfall with, I think his name is like Jesse Plemons and Phil Collins' daughter, Lily Collins.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like a like home invasion kind of movie. And it's like a tech billionaire that we assume is kind of like a Mark Zuckerberg meets Elon Musk kind of guy, and his wife come home to a man in their house who's like trying to rob them, who believes they're out of town. And then the guy's like, well, like kind of like unwillingly, like, I can't let you know who I am. So I guess I have to like ensure my safety, and like things start to go wrong and like spiral and spiral and spiral. And it's like it's a movie. It's like an hour and a half thriller. I thought it was really interesting. It's
Cool.
good. And other than that, I watched Is It a Cake on Netflix, which is not at all
God.
true crime related. Have you seen this?
Oh my God. Yeah, because like 2 days ago, Louis became obsessed with this, and he watched the entire thing from start to finish in one day.
Oh my God,
and he
I
was
love
constantly calling me over, like, which one's cake? Tell me which one's cake. You won't get it.
Cake? It's so good. It's so good.
It's
I've
cake,
only watched a
cakes
couple
shaped
episodes.
as everyday items, and you have to tell which one is a shoe or cake or a purse
Is this a taco
or
or
a hat.
is it a cake?
So amazing.
Yeah, it's really incredible from what I've seen. And I started watching it the other day while I'm like PMSing and like don't want to leave my couch. And like I was waiting for a friend to come over so I could help her get ready for a party. And like I was just in such a weird, bad mood. And like if you're having a bad day, go watch this. Like it's just so full of joy. It's so funny. I'm not really even like a baking competition show kind of person. Like I don't usually like those shows.
This is different from that. Yeah. You don't have to be like a food fan.
Like I really want to watch that one where Dan Levy's a judge. Like, do you know what that one is?
I didn't see that one, but I'm going to have to look back and see it because that would be good.
I tried watching it.
It's comedy,
and I just
you know,
don't care. Like, I just don't care about like cooking shows. Like, it's just not for me. But this one was good.
Yeah, this one is comedy too. It's like the guy from it's a guy from Saturday Night Live that's the host. So
yeah, I don't know his name.
It's got a comedic element. No, me neither.
Yeah, but he's on SNL. For
I
sure.
recognize him.
I actually couldn't place him. You're right. He's on SNL. I should have known that.
At first, I was like, "Who is this guy?" And then Louis like, "What do you mean you don't?" We watch SNL skits like every day.
Yeah,
like,
I watch it all the time, and I only know Kate McKinnon.
Amazing. Well, the other things I watched, like I'm noticing a theme, and one of my hairstyling clients mentioned it as, like, she labeled them as glam scams or scam glam or something like this. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's the Tinder swindler, the bad vegan, Elizabeth Holmes. And then, following in the same kind of vein, I started watching, which is a little bit older, the McMillions series, which is about the McDonald's Monopoly scam.
I've heard so much about this, but I haven't seen it.
It's just ridiculous that a multi-million-dollar corporation like McDonald's would have to create this game that is a rigged scam game, and they used it to move money around, and it was like the winners were like all members of the same family, and they would plot it out and be like, next you're gonna get the $1 million, and like it was just what the heck,
right?
And then I very briefly started this We Crashed about WeWork, which I'm excited because of Anne Hathaway, who's great, but then there's Jared Leto, who is very annoying, but luckily is supposed to play kind of a gross, annoying character again, so at least it works.
Can we just find someone else?
Yeah, like just that's enough of him. We've had enough.
Like people who aren't the worst can play like bad people. That like aren't actual like nightmares, like rapey, awful, cult-starting nightmares in real life.
Like, good actors, people who are like nice people that can play jerks. That's like what acting is. You don't have to just hire jerks.
Right.
Like, oh boy.
Jerk not needed.
Yeah, no thank you. And I watched this movie. I had a movie night and watched Nightmare Alley on Disney Plus, which is like,
I saw that.
Did you like it?
I liked it.
Really? I was like, I don't know. So it's very long. It's like 2.5 hours
Kate Blanchett
or something.
One, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she takes like a good half the movie to appear, for one thing.
I was very confused about that.
Yeah. And then I was just wondering where exactly the story was going or what they were trying to say for like the whole damn thing. And then at the end, you're like, oh, that's the big reveal? Okay, I got that.
It's a little disappointing until you realize it's based off a 1947 movie.
That's the thing where I was like, okay, and I've heard that I've heard about that movie and been like, maybe seeing that would make me respect this one. But like having not seen it, I'm just like, I don't know, like, is it shot for shot or is it like, did they take any creative liberties and it went weird? I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't seen the original, but I did download it because I accidentally downloaded that when I was trying to get the new one at first. And I was like,
I definitely want to watch that one just to
am
see.
I trying to watch a black and white movie? What am I watching? And my friend Fanny vetoed it.
Did this just come out?
Yes. Are they like really, really like doing vintage style on this? Okay, I'm in for that. But so then like it felt like a very 1940s ending to me. Like, and so then I was like, after having just realized that, like, I think in 2022, it was a little bit like womp womp.
Kind of predictable.
Yeah.
But it's like maybe the audience wouldn't have predicted that in the 40s, I guess. Or that would be a shocker.
Right.
But like, it's cool that the whole theme was like circus sideshow kind of thing.
I loved that. I love the aesthetic.
That's really cool.
I just like love anytime Cate Blanchett's in like 1940s anything. Like she's just like was built for that. Like she just looks so stunning.
Yeah, she's perfect for that character for sure. Just like a femme fatale kind of hard done by, but like rocking it. Kind of, it was good.
Right.
Her role was good. I don't know. I'm still like mixed feelings on the movie, but we'll watch the old one and see.
I wouldn't need to watch it again, but I was entertained.
Yeah.
It's really like
it wasn't terrible.
my reviews for shows and movies now are like, am I entertained? Like, it's not like, did it push buttons?
Is it boring?
Was it well written?
If it's not
was the character
boring,
development good? It's like, did it hold my interest? Did I stop watching it halfway through? No, then it was probably okay.
My friend that I was watching this one with, and we were speculating because this was made during COVID, and we were like, there was probably a bunch of issues.
Right.
They probably didn't get to follow through with some of the work they wanted to do on it, maybe even like fine-tuning the script or whatever. And we were just picturing it was like, well, middle of COVID, what all you A-list actors got to do? Nothing. Come on over. We're staying in this house. I don't know. We'll make a movie, I guess. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. True. There weren't that many sets involved. Like it could have been something easy to knock out, in not very much time. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's enough murder for this week. If you have not yet met your murder quota, you can always get more on the OG murdermurder.news, where we share the latest breaking true crime news every day of the week.
You can also find us on Instagram at Murder News, on Twitter at Murder News, on TikTok at Murder News, and on Facebook you can find our page by searching for Murder News.
And while you're on Facebook searching for Murder News, you will also see our group pop up. You'll want to join that group to chat about murder with your favorite podcast hosts and fellow monsters, as well as to join our book club. We're just finishing up with this month's selection, The Good House by Tananarive Due. We'll be meeting this Sunday, March 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern on Zoom, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, it's really good, y'all. Even if you don't have time to read it for book club, I definitely recommend it. I don't know how far I am because somehow the version that I downloaded, because it was not available in Hungary, is like 44 hours long, which I don't think it's supposed to be. So at some point,
You're trying to figure out still if it's duplicated or if there's extras or what.
I'm not sure. Maybe there's another book thrown in there. Maybe I got the extended version. I don't know. I would love an extended version because it's very good. So looking forward to chatting with all of you about that. Also, if you're looking to carry out a random act of kindness this week, why not give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast platform? Ratings and reviews help new fans find the show and also help us know what we're doing right and wrong with the show. Feedback is important and we really appreciate it.
Have a fantastic week.
Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.